Earlier this year, a wall of water tore through a remote Alaskan fjord, and it wasn't caused by an earthquake, a storm, or anything happening out at sea. It was caused by a mountainside collapsing into the water. Scientists confirmed it as the second highest megatsunami ever measured in Alaska's Tracy Arm. And here's the part that should genuinely concern you. Just 100 miles from Anchorage, in a fjord called Tracy Arm, geologists have been watching an almost identical setup for years. A mountain slope already moving, a glacier that used to hold it in place now melting away, and a warning that says this could collapse within the next year or the next 20. Today, we're breaking down what actually happened at Tracy Arm, why Tracy Arm is considered even more dangerous, and why this entire category of disaster barely shows up on most people's radar. No guessing, no dramatizing, just the facts, the science, and the real stakes. Drop a comment right now. Had you ever heard of a landslide-generated megatsunami before today? Tell me your first reaction. If you want to be the first to know every time something major happens with Earth's geology, subscribe to the channel right now. It is completely free. A thumbs up also helps enormously. Let's go for 5,000 likes on this one so the algorithm actually shows it to the people who need to see it. Thank you. Now, let's get into it. Alaska's Earthquake Center confirmed that a massive rock slide struck Tracy Arm, a narrow fjord south of Juneau, generating a megatsunami that ranks as the second highest ever measured in the state's history. Scientists tracking the event used a landslide detection system built specifically for this kind of hazard, developed by researchers, including seismologist Barrett Salisbury and Alaska's state seismologist Mike West, capable of identifying slides and possible tsunamis within minutes of them occurring, giving responders and nearby vessels a genuine head start compared to relying on eyewitness reports alone. In the aftermath, tour companies operating in the region moved quickly. Alaska Beacon reported that operators shifted away from bringing visitors into Tracy Arm entirely, since sections of exposed rock face in the area remained potentially unstable and capable of triggering additional tsunami-producing slides. Seismologist Sermon Karasozin, who helped build the detection system, was direct about the broader implication of this event. Alaska has many fjords with steep slopes, retreating glaciers, and similar geological conditions, meaning this specific hazard, a mountain collapsing into a narrow body of water and displacing enough water to generate a massive wave, isn't confined to any single location along the state's coastline. Why glaciers melting causes mountains to collapse. To understand why this keeps happening specifically in Alaska's fjords, you need to understand the relationship between a glacier and the rock wall surrounding it, a relationship most people never think about. For thousands of years, glaciers don't just sit passively in a valley. Their sheer mass physically braces and supports the steep rock. Walls on either side, acting almost like a structural buttress, holding unstable slopes in place. As a glacier melts and retreats, particularly during periods of rapid warming, that physical support disappears, sometimes over just a few decades. A geological blink of an eye. The rock slopes that had been braced against the ice for millennia are suddenly left without that support, and gravity does the rest. This exact mechanism is what geologists have documented at Tracy Arm, a fjord in the northwestern corner of Prince William Sound, roughly 30 miles from the coastal town of Whittier. The slope there has been moving gradually since at least the 1930s, based on historical photography. But researchers say the rate of movement has increased significantly in recent years as Berry Glacier's supporting ice has receded. According to Alaska's Division of Geological and Geophysical Surveys, the unstable mass of rock and dirt involved is estimated at roughly 500 million cubic meters, about 650 million cubic yards, among the largest actively monitored landslide masses of its kind anywhere in the world. How dangerous could Tracy Arm actually be? Here's where the science has genuinely evolved, and it's worth walking through honestly rather than defaulting to the most dramatic possible number. When scientists first identified the scale of the Tracy Arm threat in 2020, an interdisciplinary team's preliminary assessment estimated a case wave height of up to 30 feet just offshore Whittier, a genuinely catastrophic figure for a town of roughly 260 year-round residents that also serves as a major hub for cargo ships, fishing vessels, and recreational boaters throughout Prince William Sound. Since then, the U.S. Geological Survey conducted a more detailed months-long investigation, and their updated modeling found the largest plausible wave height under full catastrophic failure scenario is smaller than that initial estimate, closer to 7 feet just offshore Whittier. A separate, newer model from USGS researchers found even lower values still, closer to 2 meters, roughly 6.5 feet. It's worth being precise about what this revision means and doesn't mean. A smaller worst-case wave doesn't mean the hazard has disappeared. USGS was explicit that even at these lower estimates, the resulting wave remains potentially very dangerous, and researchers noted a wave of this scale could still reach Whittier in under 20 minutes from the moment a landslide begins, an extremely narrow window for any kind of organized evacuation. Why? This is so hard to warn people about landslide-generated tsunamis present a genuinely different challenge than the tsunami warnings we've discussed on this channel following major offshore earthquakes, like the tsunami advisories issued after this year's Mexico-Guatemala earthquake or Japan's Kumamoto quake. Those warnings rely on well-established seismic detection systems that can identify an earthquake within seconds and calculate tsunami risk based on decades of established science connecting quake magnitude, depth, and fault mechanics to wave generation. A landslide into a narrow fjord doesn't offer that same lead time. The National Weather Service's Alaska office has been direct about this distinction in its own public guidance, stating plainly that landslide-generated tsunamis are especially difficult to monitor and warn for, and that people using Prince William Sound need to stay aware of the risk and take action at the first sign of danger, even before any official warning has been issued. That's a 5 genuinely unusual instruction for a government safety agency to give, essentially telling the public that in this specific scenario, official warning systems may not reach you in time, and personal vigilance, watching and listening for unusual rockfall, sudden wave activity, or unexpected water movement, may be the most reliable protection available. The historical precedent that makes this credible. This isn't a hypothetical risk built purely on computer modeling. Prince William Sound has direct historical experience with landslide and earthquake-driven tsunamis, most significantly during the magnitude 9.2 earthquake that struck the region in 1964, one of the most powerful earthquakes ever, recorded anywhere on Earth, which triggered numerous local tsunamis throughout the Sound. And Alaska's fjords have produced far more extreme events elsewhere in the state's history. Steve Masterman, Alaska's state geologist, has pointed to the 1958 landslide-generated tsunami in Lituya Bay as a genuine benchmark for how extreme these events can become, a wave that reportedly ran up 1,100 feet on the opposite side of that fjord, among the largest tsunami run-up heights ever documented anywhere in the world. That event, decades before Barry Arm was ever identified as a modern hazard, demonstrates that Alaska's steep, glacially carved fjords are physically capable of producing tsunamis at a scale most people would associate with fiction rather than documented geological history. What's being done about it? Right now, since the Barry Arm threat was first formally identified, Congress allocated $4 million in 2021 specifically to address landslide hazards across Prince William Sound, including a $2.2 million cooperative agreement between Alaska's State Geological Survey and the 6USGS Landslide Hazards Program. That funding supports continuous monitoring using a combination of remote satellite imagery, ground-based seismic sensors, and infrasound arrays capable of detecting the specific acoustic signature of rockfall and slope movement in real time. As of the most recent public update, Alaska's Division of Geological and Geophysical Surveys describes the Barry Arm slope as stable or exhibiting slow rates of deformation, generally less than 50 millimeters per day, with localized pockets of faster movement that could produce smaller, localized waves without necessarily triggering the full region. Wide catastrophic scenario. Crucially, researchers note that a full, sudden catastrophic failure is considered unlikely without some external trigger, most notably a strong regional earthquake, similar to the kind that has repeatedly shaken this seismically active part of Alaska throughout its recorded history. Alaska's Geological Survey updates its public Barry Arm status report on a regular schedule, with the most recent update cycle set to continue through at least early August 2026, or sooner if the monitored threat level changes. Scientists continue expanding the same detection network that successfully identified the Tracy Arm megatsunami to cover additional at-risk fjords throughout the region, since researchers have been clear that Barry Arm and Tracy Arm are examples of a broader hazard type rather than two isolated, unrelated locations. Mariners, tour operators, and residents throughout Prince William Sound continue receiving guidance to remain alert for unusual rockfall activity, unexpected wave behavior, or unusual currents anytime they're in the vicinity of monitored slopes, regardless of whether an official warning has been issued. A mountainside that has been quietly shifting since the 1930s, held in place for decades by a glacier that's now disappearing, represents a genuinely different kind of natural hazard than the earthquakes, volcanoes, and storms we usually cover on this channel, slow, patient, and driven as much by long-term climate change as by any single dramatic trigger. Tracy Arm's Megatsunami earlier this year wasn't a warning sign that came out of nowhere. It was a demonstration, in real time, of exactly the mechanism scientists have spent years warning could eventually play out at Barry Arm as well. Whether that specific slope holds for another 20 years or fails far sooner remains, by the scientific community's own honest admission, genuinely uncertain. What isn't uncertain is that the monitoring network built in response to this threat just proved, at Tracy Arm, that it works. We will keep tracking this story and every other major seismic, volcanic, and extreme weather event happening around the world right now. Subscribe so you don't miss it if Barry Arm's status ever changes. And leave that comment below. Had you ever heard of a landslide-generated megatsunami before today? Tell me your first reaction. 5,000 likes on this video. Let's go. See you in the next one.